Hey there, I hope you're doing well, Professor. So today we have our clinical case study on articulation. For a little bit of an overview, you know that our patient is Alex. He's 4 years old, and he has spastic cerebral palsy. Now, the spastic part means stiff muscles, and that, you know, it's the most common type of cerebral palsy. But, we want to think about what is cerebral palsy. So cerebral, if we break it down, means brain, and palsy refers to problems with movement. So it's a brain disorder that appears in infancy or early childhood development. And what it does, it permanently affects the body's movement and these muscle coordination. So cerebral palsy is caused by these changes in the developing brain. So as a baby, your brain's developing. So while the brain is being developed, that's where these problems are caused. And it is the brain's areas are disturbed, its ability to control movement and maintain that posture and balance. So like some cases of cerebral palsy happen when areas of the brain that involves the muscle movement don't develop as expected in the womb. So with what we're given, that could be a factor that why Alex has cerebral palsy. And other damages results in injuries of the brain before too. It could be even during, after, or before birth as well. So we don't really know that too much from the overview with what is given, but we do know that certain other things can cause problems with the brain. Like if there was a stroke to happen, the blood supply is not getting to where the areas of the developing brain needs to be. You don't want any bleeding from the brain. This can even happen in the womb or as a newborn. You have traumatic head injuries that cannot, that can affect a baby's brain to have cerebral palsy. A lot of things a lot of different complications can happen during birth. I think the least common is probably lack of oxygen to the brain. I could get that wrong, but they were talking about how lack of oxygen, you need oxygen. So the lack of oxygen to the brain, can in results of like a hard labor or delivery, can cause that as well. So in regards to Alex, though, we know that over time it became apparent that Alex is having difficulty with his motor control, mostly with his legs, resulting in that stiffness, and he's having a hard time walking. So this stiffness can also delay, affects his speech and language development as well. And that's why he's here, because his mother is concerned about his ability to form clear words, and he has a limited vocabulary, and he's having difficulty with those oral motor controls. So which affects his ability to speak, but also is affecting his ability to eat. So moving on to our characteristics and symptoms, uh, you know everything that I have said makes sense to what the overview is. So, Alex is having difficulty, with muscle control, which can make it hard to produce certain sounds, because you also don't think of all the muscles in your neck that allows you to move and to breathe and take all that in. So, children with cerebral palsy have difficulty controlling the muscles in their face, their throat, their neck, even their head. So, this could lead to troubles with chewing and speaking and even swallowing too. And that's what he's having problems with. It can also affect, it can cause by drooling too, if you're not having the ability to control those muscles in your face. And that could also affect how you speak as well. Additionally, people with cerebral palsy it can impact their breathing. This can lead to problems with the speaking as well, and swallowing difficulties are very common among those with cerebral palsy. And that's what he's having. He's having a hard time eating, drinking, and swallowing and speaking. And he's not getting that air in too. If he's having problems breathing, it's going to affect his movement, how he exercises, the stiffness of his muscles, and it's also going to affect how his voice will come out when he speaks. If he's not getting enough air in, he's going to have that raspy, airy, that vocal fry in his voice, uh, because he's not getting that oxygen he needs, or the muscles to work his diaphragm correctly. Uh, you know, uh, there's also symptoms of cognitive impairments, uh, and you know, everything's different. Every person who has um, cerebral palsy suffers from different symptoms of this. Uh, one thing I mentioned was apraxia, which is the motor disorder that impacts the ability to produce speech sounds. Cerebral palsy can cause problems with the muscle control, making it hard to make certain sounds. There's also, dysphagia, which is another motor disorder which impacts how clearly somebody can speak, the ability to speak clearly. The muscles involved in speech production may be weak or have be in poor condition for that. It just makes it really hard for sounds to be produced and clear, and that is what his mom is saying that he's having trouble with. There's also when I mentioned about not getting the right breath support, that's this dysphonia. I could be saying this wrong, but that's a speech disorder in which that causes that hoarseness, that breathiness, that pitch problems. And you're not getting the air that you need. And you have with the feeding and swallowing, you have dysphagia, which is the swallowing disorder. Make it hard to swallow liquids or solid foods and stuff. And you don't want him to be choking, or you want to make sure he's don't want to have aspirating and stuff like that. And that could lead to respiratory infections if he's not getting the proper help that he needs. And so, moving on to the last step, cultural considerations. So, what are some factors to consider for Alex? Well, we know from our background that he speaks both English and Spanish at home. So there's that concern about how how his bilingual environment will impact his speech and development. And I would say that according to ASHA, identifying a communication disorder in a bilingual individual requires careful consideration for a multitude of factors. We want to make sure that, if he's bilingual, he may have an accent, he may say things a certain way, and we got to be considered to where, is that an accent? Is that something, that is accent being spoken? He's finding his own voice. Is it two languages merging where he finding his voice? It's not a impairment. He's not saying something wrong. He's saying something a certain way because of his culture. So we got to think about that. We got to think about how he processes his speech and language development. There's language loss. There's impact. What language he finds dominant. We want to make sure he's comfortable, and we're going to make sure that no matter what he's speaking, he's comfortable. And I think some factors that we need to consider is to make sure that he is exposed to both cultural sides, his English side and his Spanish side, because those are a part of who he is. It's part of his family. That's going to be a part of him. And he already feels, if he's having frustration already, then he's probably going to have a hard time speaking and stuff. And that frustration can eat at you. And so we want to make sure that he's comfortable and that he's proud of who he is and he can express who he is in his family. So we want to make sure that he's speaking either language here at home in our clinical case study. And we also want to make sure that we can acknowledge any of his other skills that he has in different languages. I know he's 4, but he might might say things differently. We want to also make sure that, the family is very involved. So we want to make sure the family is very involved in this process of him overcoming these speech hurdles. And you know, they may have input that I don't have. And so it's really important to put that into consideration when, so he can get the best help. So we want to make sure the family is just there for the whole process. And those reasons are why it's important to consider those cultural considerations. So thank you. Those were my video responses from 1 through 3. And I look forward for you to read questions 4 through 6 on my paper. So thank you.